Good evening, I'm Jason Vio. Katarina is away this week. This is CBC Windsor News. Thank you so much for watching. Tonight, a new EV battery plant announced today. This one about 2 hours up Highway 401. Plus, Windsor's Adventure Bay Water Park is open for March break, but the hours are still not back to pre-pandemic levels. More dental issues among local kids now compared to a decade ago. The local health unit is exploring why. And closed-door council meetings. Council appoints members of the public to boards and committees in private. Now that practice will be reviewed by an external investigator. Another massive investment for the shifting auto sector in Ontario today. Volkswagen will build a brand new battery plant in St. Thomas. It's a new gigafactory similar to the one Stellantis is building right here in Windsor. The CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian with those details tonight.
This is the end of a search that started last year when the federal government and Volkswagen came to an understanding that they would look for a spot for the manufacturer's first electric vehicle manufacturing plant outside of Europe, where the automaker is based. Now, the U.S. was in heavy competition. St. Thomas, Ontario, where the plant will end up, saying that some 40 sites in the U.S. were possibilities in the end. Federal Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne telling CBC's Power and Politics that he had to work pretty hard for the plant to land in Canada.
This is really a home run for Canada. It's probably the largest single investment we've ever seen in the auto sector industry of Canada. And it's also, the first gigafactory of Volkswagen outside of Europe. So the fact that they've chosen Canada, it's a huge vote of confidence for Canada. It's a big vote of confidence in our auto sector, but it's also a big vote of confidence in our auto workers. And I want to thank them because it's always thanks to their know-how, expertise, and excellence that you can land these big deals that are going to be transformational. This is not just like another announcement. This is like a new chapter, I would say, in the auto industry in Canada. We've been trying to have European car manufacturers to invest in Canada for decades. And now, not only we secured one, but we secured Volkswagen. We secured it in the vehicle of the future. And it put Canada at the forefront of green mobility. So big home run for Canada today.
It's not clear exactly how many jobs the announcement will create. The federal government says stay tuned to another announcement, a forthcoming one from Volkswagen themselves on the groundbreaking. But one estimate from the Automotive Manufacturers Parts Association says to expect 2,500 direct jobs, another 5,000 indirect ones. The plant is expected to open in 2027. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
And this comes nearly a year after Stellantis and LG Energy Solutions announced a battery plant for Windsor. Industry experts say this is good news for this area. The taxpayer-funded Invest Windsor Essex Group says this will help attract and grow companies that are part of the battery supply chain.
So there are supply chain companies that, we're working with electrolyte companies that are setting up here, installation companies for the battery film. Also casing companies that are setting up here. It's under construction right now. So a lot of those supply chain companies could easily supply multiple facilities. And it just makes their value proposition that much better as well, having access to these different customers.
City-run Adventure Bay is welcoming families for March break, but staff say they're relieved they were able to open the doors this week. The park is operating at reduced hours during a traditionally busy time. The CBC's TJ Deere has that story.
The City of Windsor opened Adventure Bay this week, so families with kids off school have somewhere to go.
We love the crowds. I mean, that's what this building was designed for, to host championships, to host a full Adventure Bay, and we've prepared for that. You saw the lines this morning when you were here, and we ran those lines for about an hour and 15 minutes. We had everybody in the park, so that was great.
What's not great? The hours, according to some park goers. Adventure Bay is only open from noon to 4 p.m., Monday to Friday.
I think they shouldn't limit because there are too big crowds of people and too large, long lines waiting for slides. I think they should do it from 10 to 5 or 6 at least. Yeah, especially for March breaks.
That's kind of annoying. We're from out of town, so we drove like an hour and a half to the crappy weather to be here, and then it's super busy. So they got to cram all the people who want to be here in the 4-hour time slot that they got to be in. So it makes it a little bit crowded.
Visitors lined up for the rides to get a head start on their summer. In previous years, Adventure Bay extended their hours during March break, running for 10 hours a day. The manager of the park said the park's hours are shorter this year due to staffing issues.
During the pandemic, we had nobody going into our leadership courses, and when you've got nobody going into leadership courses for 2 years, you of course have that void once you reopen.
Adventure Bay isn't the only part of the city's aquatic hub that will see action this week. The swimming center next door will be hosting the Eastern Canadian Swimming Championships from Thursday to Sunday. That's also putting pressure on staff.
If you're looking to bring your family to the park this week, Chandler suggests you purchase your tickets for the park online to avoid long lines. TJ Deere, CBC News, Windsor.
The smiles of kids' teeth in Windsor, Essex contain more cavities now than 10 years ago. 1 in 4 kids screened by the health unit have signs of tooth decay that require urgent dental care. That's double what was reported in 2012. One example they gave, last year the average junior kindergarten student had 2 teeth with a cavity, a tooth that was missing or had been filled. Health professionals say these issues are so severe it often requires special attention.
It's generally dental decay that we're noticing is worse over time. And although all of the indicators that we have in the dashboard, we can see that they're all worsening over time. But what we can see physically in those exams during the dental screening is that it's more severe decay than what we see. So it's progressing rapidly, which means that often students will need to see specialists because of how severe it is. And then going back to COVID-19, a lot of those hospital visits were canceled. So really now you're kind of seeing this backlog and a lot of children who were not able to get the services that they required at that time.
The health unit says there are a number of reasons why this is happening. Finding a dentist, they say, isn't easy, and the costs can be so high people sometimes can't afford to go. It can also be tough to find a dentist that speaks your language. Dentists have also talked about the need for fluoride in Windsor's water. It was removed back in 2013 and recently reintroduced into the system. The health unit says it's also working to expand screenings to get a better sense of the area's oral health.
Not having access to broadband services does have an impact. I think that's one of the things that our next steps are, is truly understanding how do people get to where they are in terms of their oral health, whether it's based on a number of different factors related to access, behaviors to all those things will help us dive a little bit deeper in knowing what can we do or how can we best inform our community on how to improve or how to continue to improve and prevent poor or health status.
An outside investigator will be looking into why Windsor City Council appoints members of the public to boards and committees behind closed doors. That's been a long-standing tradition for decades in Windsor. Now, those residents oversee large budgets and make decisions for organizations such as police, the library, and the airport, but other municipalities do it differently and make those appointments out in the open. Members of Windsor City Council don't discuss or appoint people to boards, agencies, and committees here as they do most of their meetings. Instead, it's done in a back room, in private. Adam Vasey wants to know why and thinks it should be held in public. So the social worker and political follower filed a request for a review with the closed-door meeting investigator.
Maybe this could be the impetus for people, our elected officials, to actually look at this and say, this isn't right. Like, this is actually causing more disengagement in our community. It's actually leading to mistrust, more cynicism, lack of engagement in the political process.
His decision to file this was prompted in part by CBC's coverage of council appointing a white credit union exec to an already white police board. Critics have said these boards, especially in policing, need to reflect the diversity of our community. For decades, it's been a long-standing practice for Windsor to make these decisions behind closed doors. The Municipal Act says councils must hold all meetings in public unless at least one of the exceptions are met. That includes council discussing personal matters about an identifiable individual, which is why the city's clerk says these meetings are held behind closed doors. The clerk says there's personal information contained in resumes, applications. People that do apply expect for that information to remain private. In 2011, an external governance review found this is an acceptable practice, but not all municipalities do it this way. For the last 15 years, London has discussed applications and appointed those who applied to be on committees in public. Right next door, the town of Tecumseh has also been doing it this way for as long as the mayor can remember.
There's really no secret here. To me, that those should be done in public. and deliberated, because again, you're delivering a lot of committee work that's done in the public eye, and the public should have an opportunity to see who populates those committees, prior to them being set.
As for the complaint filed in Windsor, a law firm in Toronto will look into it. Once complete, a report will go to council to be discussed in public. Windsor's clerk says this is a good educational tool, giving a chance to improve bylaws if they find these types of meetings shouldn't be held in private. You're looking now at a one-bedroom apartment inside Windsor's newest affordable housing complex. This is for the Meadowbrook apartment building. That unit will cost close to $1,500 a month. There are also bachelor and 3-bedroom units available there. The building is opening up 3 years behind schedule. Now, there are 145 units inside. Half of those will go to people who are on the city's affordable housing list. The city says that list has about 6,000 names on it right now. Some people on that list have been told they'll be waiting 10 years before finding an affordable unit. For more on this project and how to apply, head to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. City Council is a couple weeks away from finishing up the budget. It could come with one of the biggest jumps your tax bill has seen in years. Staff are recommending Council increase the tax rate by 5%. That's up from what we heard last in January. That's when Council met to try lowering that increase. The latest number comes after new costs have popped up. Council will go over the budget once more at the start of next month. CBC News has learned the federal government will focus on 3 main priorities in the next budget on March 28th. Senior government sources say affordability, a new clean energy strategy, and healthcare are the primary targets. Karina Roman has more.
Measures to help with people's cost of living struggles, investments in the clean industrial economy, and healthcare. Inflation has come down, but it's still too high for many Canadians. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland has said she wants to help without putting any fuel on the inflation fire. So expect any new affordability measures to be targeted to people with lower incomes.
The danger is higher inflation for longer could put the government in really difficult position where they can't really do much, but they are blamed by people for, as you say, affordability issues. So high spending is not the answer, but at the same time, politically, the government will need to show that, it will help people that really need help.
Freeland has said Canada needs a new modern and robust industrial strategy as it transitions to a greener economy. Watch for investments, incentives, and tax credits on that front. The urgency to do this comes in reaction to the U.S.'s Inflation Reduction Act, which will see an estimated $500 billion pumped into clean tech and manufacturing there.
Canada has used a lot of sticks up to now, a lot of do this or pay high. Perhaps now is not the time to do more of that. It's a time to provide more incentives, to encourage investment, to encourage that transition, because it's not a debate anymore. Do we need to go through a transition? The Inflation Reduction Act reminded us we don't have a choice.
The budget will also set aside promised money for new healthcare deals, nearly $200 billion over 10 years. $49 billion of that is new spending. The budget will also reveal how those deals will impact the country's bottom line. Even with billions of dollars in new spending, sources tell CBC this year's budget will be constrained by a worsening fiscal situation caused by a global economic slowdown. Karina Roman, CBC News, Ottawa.
U.S. authorities are trying to reassure people in financial markets today after the collapse of 2 banks. They're now guaranteeing deposits at Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, and they're taking other steps in hopes that the trouble doesn't spread. The CBC's Paul Hunter has the latest.
Good morning, everyone. Joe Biden had a clear headline for Americans this morning: don't panic. Your money's safe and it's protected. So too the U.S. banking industry broadly. Biden was all about confidence building today after a frenetic weekend for his administration, ultimately leading to a couple of remarkable steps. One, the federal government now guarantees deposits at the Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank in New York at levels above regular deposit insurance. And as well, the U.S. Federal Reserve has now created a program aimed at making sure other banks don't follow the path of SVP, because that's the fear, that panic will ensue, leading to contagion and potentially a financial meltdown. Biden also emphasized that none of what he's now doing will cost U.S. taxpayers a dime, that this is not a bailout. And on top of all that, he underlined those at SVB who made bad decisions that led to its failure will be held to account.
The management of these banks will be fired. If the bank is taken over by FDIC, the people running the bank should not work there anymore. Investors in the banks will not be protected. They knowingly took a risk, and when the risk didn't pay off, investors lose their money. That's how capitalism works.
The other underlying message from Biden today is that this isn't 2008. This is a very different circumstance than the 2008 crisis, and the U.S. economy is in a very different place than it was back then. Most regulations that came out of that crisis are still in place, even though under Donald Trump, some were eased. But the bottom line, protections exist. Rest assured, he said. Again, all aimed at reducing jitters. And though Biden's publicly aiming to keep the banking industry healthy, there's also politics in all of this. Already blamed for high inflation and the high interest rates which followed, Biden knows, as he readies for a likely run at re-election, that he needs the U.S. economy in good shape, and he needs it soon. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Still to come, sunshine and flurries on the way. Your weather forecast is coming up right after the break. There's a problem that's familiar to a lot of employers in Ontario right now. Childcare providers in this province are desperately searching for staff. The shortage is so severe that it could spell trouble for the national $10 a day childcare program. CBC senior reporter Mike Crowley with the latest story in our ongoing series, Workers Wanted.
Building a tower of blocks is something any kid can do pretty much on their own.
Would you like to use that?
Building a national childcare program, well, that needs a whole lot of help.
Beep, beep, beep.
Early childhood educators are in such short supply that childcare centres, like this one at Toronto's West End YMCA, can't even meet the demand for spots right now.
Our wait lists, it's not a point of lack of spaces, lack of physical space, lack of capital, it's lack of people to provide the care.
The YMCA of Greater Toronto is licensed for another 19,000 childcare spots that it cannot put kids in.
Why? Because we don't have the human resources to fill those spaces.
All that is prompting concern that $10 a day childcare will not be available to all parents who want it.
The program is being designed for people to get access to high quality, affordable childcare. We need to have the human resources to provide that care.
No disagreement from the federal minister overseeing the childcare plan.
We cannot achieve our objectives if we do not have a talented, well-qualified, caring, and well-compensated workforce.
To staff the new spaces being promised in Ontario over the next 3 years, the province estimates it will need another 15,000 childcare workers. The government's own forecast for the sector falls 8,000 workers short.
It's terrible. This is the worst workforce crisis childcare has ever faced, and we've had recruitment and retention issues in childcare for years, before the pandemic, but it's just gotten so much worse.
For parents, the staffing crisis threatens to make the already long wait for a daycare spot even longer.
But what we're going to see is huge wait lists, ballooning wait lists for childcare, because childcare programs can't staff.
Good job, Jane.
In Ontario, the average early childhood educator, or ECE, works in childcare for just 3 years.
As much as you build these childcare centers, if there are no ECEs to staff them, those are empty rooms.
And that puts the vision of a national childcare program in doubt. Mike Crowley, CBC News, Toronto.
Ontario's Labour Minister announced legislation today to tighten rules around mass layoffs. He says employees who work from home don't have the same protections as their in-office counterparts.
Currently, our employment laws treat remote workers as second class, meaning they don't receive the enhanced severance payments that their in-office colleagues do during mass layoffs. This is wrong, and we're going to fix it.
McNaughton says employers often take advantage of remote workers who aren't eligible for the same notice as office workers. Under the proposed changes, employees working from home would receive 8 weeks notice or severance pay in mass terminations. That's the same as their in-office counterparts. The legislation would also require employers to provide new hires with information about their jobs in writing. That includes pay, work location, and hours of work. At the end of the year, over 2 million Ontarians were working partially or fully from home. Let's take a live look outside right now. That weekend sun melted most of the snow we got on Friday, but it seems like it's all back now with the flurries throughout the day, hovering around freezing right now. Colette's away this week, so I'll give you a quick rundown of what to expect weather-wise. Looking into the short term, tomorrow is going to be a cold one. The wind chill will make it feel like -13 in the morning, flurries during the day. Things get a little easier as the week goes on. Sunny in the middle of your March break, cloudy with showers to round out the end of the week. And that's right, a mix of rain and snow on Friday, according to the forecast. Still some flurries as we head into the weekend. Still to come, some memorable moments at the Oscars. We'll bring one of them to you right after the break. A big win last night at the Oscars for a movie Windsor seems to love. Women Talking was named the Best Adapted Screenplay, and it's a film that has a key Windsor connection. First, we have to give credit to Canadian Sarah Polley. She wrote and directed the film. Here she is during her speech last night. Now, the film is based on a book by Miriam Taves. The film played at WIFF last year and was voted the People's Choice by festival goers. Windsor's Daniel Murphy was paying close attention to the show last night. He was the film's first assistant director.
It's a real it's a feather in my cap, I guess. But again, not to in any way diminish the whole collective enterprise that is making any film. You know, it really does take a team of people working very hard to get it from page to screen. And I'm just very, very thrilled that I was a part of it and that it got recognized. It's still a little bit of a surrealist, rather, it's a bit surrealistic, I must say, because it just hasn't happened, and it's weird.
Murphy was Sarah Polley's first assistant director. That's the person who traditionally helps prepare call sheets, tracks daily progress, and helps manage the cast and crew. Now, this is the first film Murphy has worked on that's won this kind of award.
You have to be attentive to all the needs that the production requires, and certainly being at the side of the director for almost the entire process of prep and shooting. It's a very close and important relationship. So I'm just happy that I've been able to work with Sarah on 3 separate occasions, and who knows, down the road, we hope, right?
We end tonight with a bit of a rescue story in a case of a lucky break and great timing. Yesterday, police in Australia saved a waterlogged little Joey. Record-setting floods in northeastern Australia have made life a little more dangerous than usual. This young kangaroo was way in over its head. Police managed to give it a lift to a safe shore. Now, while adult kangaroos are actually excellent swimmers, this little guy obviously hasn't had his lessons just yet. That's it for CBC Windsor News at 6. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, for news anytime, head to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. Don't forget to check us out on social media as well, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Have a great night.